Well, we welcome today an extraordinary woman, Lady Justice Aminatta Lois Runeni, to the African Women in Law Legacy Project. So welcome, Lady Justice. It's such an honor and privilege for me to have this conversation with you today.
Thank you, Judge Ann Williams. It is my pleasure to also be in this meeting. And I'm grateful and I appreciate it very much that I've been invited to attend.
Doing this project is one of the greatest honors of my life. I have interviewed some extraordinary African women justices, and I know, and I hope our audience will know when we're done, why you are so extraordinary. You've had a long and successful career working in the UN International Tribunals and serving with great distinction in the judiciary in Gambia. Many positions, magistrate, court of appeals, on the Supreme Court. And we're going to talk about all that. But first, I know you were born in Zimbabwe, formerly Rhodesia, and then ultimately married and became Gambian because you married a Gambian citizen. But we want to begin at the beginning, how you grew up. What inspiration did you get as a woman, as a girl child, to pursue your education and to dream big dreams?
I was born in Zimbabwe, in Salisbury. In those days, it was called Salisbury, which is now Harare. As I grew up, I was brought up as to be told that I was a Muzare Shonga, which meant that I was from the lineage of Chief Chingaira Makoni. So I was one of the princesses from that lineage. And so we were always reminded of how Chief Chingaira had been a great chief and all the rest of it. And he's one of those that the British cut off his head, which is currently in the British Museum or somewhere in the UK. And so we sort of grew up with that. However, my father was a politician, and he spent quite a lot of time in political detention during that time. So it was our mother who actually spent most of the time with us, and who really brought this wish for me to become, in fact, I wanted to become a doctor, but when I went for my high school training at St. Augustine's High School, I wasn't very good at the sciences. So I ended up doing the arts subjects. And then I chose law because with my father in political detention most of the time, in fact, he went to most of the detention centers, Wawa, Gonakzingwa, including Gokwe, where he actually stayed with my mother and 3 of my young brothers. I was staying with an auntie, so I didn't go with them. So all those human rights violations were happening as a child. Apartheid was there in Rhodesia. And, it sort of gave me the inspiration to want to become a lawyer and do something about human rights. And so this is how I got the inspiration to become a lawyer. And in fact, I believe that when I originally registered and started studying law at the University of Rhodesia in those days, I believe that I must have been the first African woman to have registered to study law. I stand to be corrected if somebody has evidence of somebody else. However, as it turned out, that July of the year that I joined the university, we had the students' demonstration against some of the policies of the regime. And it was during that demonstration that I was one of the 6 female students who were arrested. and we were detained at the Chukurubi maximum prison, where I had to spend a month and I believe 7 days, after which we were put before a magistrate, and I was, I pleaded guilty of having participated in the demonstration. And it was after that we were not, we were given banning orders so that I was not able to go to the university again, because I was banned from 20 kilometers from the post office in Harare, and the university is 7 kilometers from there. So I wasn't able to then go to the university, and I had to go home to my village and stayed there. But then an appeal was made, and later on in the year, we were allowed to go back to the university, but it was late. So the following year, the law department, for some reason, I had become persona non grata. So I joined the administration department, but I wasn't happy with that. I still wanted to study law, and then I was able to get a grant from Kiel Students Union in the UK, and that was how I left for the UK to study law the following October.
And that is, and so seeing your dad in detention, and then you being arrested, and then banned, others might have given up, but you didn't give up. Why didn't you give up?
Because I have this resilience, and it's like, if I want to do something, I will have to do it. And in fact, I remember even when I went for the interview for the law department, they were telling me, how can you expect to be admitted in the law department? It's very difficult. Everybody has failed to get in there. And I believe when we went for the interview, we were a number of Africans. I think we were like 4 males and 2 or 3 females, and I was the only female who managed to pass the interview, and 1 male who passed the interview. So it was quite tough, but I've always wanted challenges and to deal with challenges.
And so the lesson for some of the young women who are listening, some of the young men and others, the lesson is what? What is your lesson or advice to them when they run into a roadblock or a door that is closed?
I always say that you should do what is your passion. If you are passionate about something, work on it, work hard on it, and make sure you get it. Even if you don't get it this time, you could even go and study a different subject, and then later you can still go back to law if that's what you really want to do. You don't have to limit yourself, because and also there are so many people out there who are good at saying this cannot be done, particularly in that time in the 1970s for women. Most women were going to do nursing or teaching after their O levels and A levels, and so it was like, why would you want to go and study law? Just go and do something like administration or something like that. But I wanted to study law, and I'm glad that I followed my passion, because I'm sure I would have been very frustrated if I had done something else that I didn't want to.
Yeah, your story about women, because that was the time I was in college as well. In fact, I ended up as an education major and was a teacher. So for women, it was social work, nursing, teaching,
Yes,
that kind of thing. So then when you then transferred and you actually graduated with honors in law and sociology, and you ultimately took a judicial management course in London. And several years later, you got your LLM in public international law, but you did practice law in the UK. And so what was your experience like when you were in private practice? You had to be one of the few women practicing law.
Yes, in fact, when I went to the Inns of Court School of Law to do the bar finals, I was told you will not be able to pass this because a lot of men have been failing. In fact, there were very few of us women who were studying law at the Inns of Court School of Law, and I was a member of Lincoln's Inn. But I insisted I was going to study law, and that's what I was going to do. I was going to do the bar. And fortunately, I was able to pass the first time round, and I went and did pupillage at Lincoln's Inn place.
And
say Henry Myers. You know, the pupillage is 6 months, like you'll be practicing under a qualified barrister for 6 months.
And what kind of law did you practice after you became a barrister? Was there a particular interest you had?
It was just a mix, because the chambers that say Henry Myers was in, you know, they did criminal law, civil law. So it was good because I was able to learn from the different laws, you know, the criminal law, the civil law. So I would follow whoever had a case in court, and then be the one to be doing the research or the jottings and so forth.
And so one of the lessons too, because of how you mentioned, you know, sometimes you can't get where you want to go when you want to go
immediately. Exactly.
Yes, but
you have to start from the bottom. Yes. Which was the same as the practice as well, because when I finished, I went to the Gambia. And in fact, when I went to the Gambia, I had applied to the Attorney General's chambers to be state attorney. But then when I got to the Gambia, they told me there was already one lady who had just come who had already joined the Attorney General's chambers. So they needed somebody in the judiciary. So that's how I became the first female magistrate, you know, in the Gambia.
Yeah, and that
also,
was. No, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
And also that was a challenge for me, because being a Muslim country, most of the people were questioning how a woman could come all the way to the Gambia and you live alone. And, you know, they could just not understand. And how can you be a lawyer? I mean, women are not supposed to be in leadership roles. You cannot be a magistrate. And it's interesting how sometimes they would come to the magistrate's court and they'll get into, when they show them my office, they walk into my office and they are like, "We are looking for the magistrate." And when I say, "That's me," they will be surprised because they were thinking they are going to see a man. You know?
And that's what I wanted to focus on next, your judicial career.
You know, when you study law, when you then come on the bench, it's completely different. It's, you know, you actually have to start learning the law again in order to practice whatever is in that country.